Well, hello everyone. We are here with my good friend Kelly. Kelly, before we get into talking about teamwork today and teams, give us just a little introduction about yourself and ministry experience.
Ministry experience. Well, so as you said, my name is Kelly, and I've had the privilege of being on staff at a campus of Calvary Chapel in Boynton Beach since 2006. I've served in many different roles, from like cleaning the toilets to overseeing worship, student ministries. Currently, I am serving as the associate pastor there, so really looking at all the operations that happen on the weekend services, still overseeing the family ministry, and whatever else they let me touch, I guess. But so that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Okay. And so one of the reasons I want to interview you is because, man, I love campuses and how they really develop leaders and teams. It's like you have to be really great with systems, with leadership development, and your experience. I know we can glean a lot about how to develop leaders, how to work with teams, building culture, all that stuff. Right? You're the expert?
No, I'm not the expert. But I enjoy it. I enjoy it too. Yeah.
So we were just talking beforehand, but like we could just talk for hours about ministry and stuff like that. But I'm like, wait, we should probably record some of this and actually talk about it so other people could hear about it. So
hopefully learn from our mistakes.
Oh man, there's so many that I'm so embarrassed to even share. We'll talk about this. Let's get in the subject of teams and teamwork. And obviously, when you're a campus pastor, or even in that ministry setting, you deal with a lot of different groups of people and doing a lot of different things to accomplish a great vision. In Calvary Chapel, with multiple campuses, thousands of people, it takes a lot of organization and planning and those type of things. Can you just tell us why it's so important to work in a team, whether that be different campus pastors and other stuff, but also in just at your campus, the ushering team, the parking team? Why is teamwork so important biblically and just practically when doing ministry?
Yeah, I think you're probably on the same page. It's really exciting being a part of a bigger vision of what God's doing. And you've probably heard the phrase, if you want to go fast, go alone. Yeah. But if you want to go far, go with a team.
Ooh, that's good.
So I think when we're working with a team, it allows us to be part of something much bigger than we could ever accomplish ourselves. And I think that's really exciting. And being in a position as being at a campus, it's kind of like I have a unique vantage point because I see all the resources of Fort Lauderdale. I'm employed by Fort Lauderdale, so I'm in a lot of meetings there, and I get to see kind of what a bigger church runs like. But then yet I get to bring that to our campus, which is a lot smaller, and it's a completely different vantage point. And for me, I've looked at it like at the campus level, we might not have all the exact resources of Fort Lauderdale, but to me, a big win is when we can accomplish a high level of ministry on a volunteer basis.
Yeah.
Because that's something that's supernatural. That takes the Lord to do that. And that's been kind of the way that I've approached looking at our teams is raising up like a volunteer team that can operate at a high level and really make an impact for the kingdom.
Yeah.
So, and it's been exciting to see how that has happened, and there's definitely a lot of learning lessons in doing that.
Yeah. So let's lean into that. How do you actually recruit volunteers on the smaller campus size, on people that you can't say, well, here's a paycheck for your service, but man, how do you inspire them, give them vision, help them dream with you, and then accomplish the great task to make disciples in a local context? Boynton Beach, which, city right next to me, which I love.
Blue collar.
That's right.
All the way. Yeah. Yeah. So recruiting, and I think probably anyone listening, and you could agree with this, sometimes in recruiting teams, we don't actually have a choice. Sometimes we inherit teams.
Yes.
It's kind of like who God is bringing to the table. And I think that takes a lot of faith, a lot of philosophy of just believing the best in people. But if you were going to recruit a team, obviously I think observation is a big part of that. Okay. And especially if it's a team for a specific task and you have the freedom to kind of hand pick who you'd want, I think observation, like observing the people that God has put around you, watching their character. I think unity is a big one, like seeing people that you don't have to convince them about what's going on and the importance of it. Like they're already there behind you. Seeing the integrity, like do they follow through in what they say? Are they consistent? Seeing that consistency. And then I think this is a big one that gets underutilized, is really trying to discover people's gifts and talents. Prying into conversations. That's where the observation, I think, is really important. Because as, say, you are trying to develop a team for a specific ministry or event, you kind of have the vision of what you're looking for, and then you're looking to see who has the gifts and talents, that would really complement that.
Yeah. See, but I like what you said, because you're saying observe, but that's even a ministry philosophy. You're saying use what you got. When God brings people to your network, your influence, your church, start there and observe and be with them, look for them and see those skills. Do you have any practical tools that you do for spiritual gifting testing, or do you interview people and just talk about how do we understand people's gifts and their calling? How does that work out for when you're observing, you say, well, I think they're gifted in teaching, but how do you test those things?
Yeah, and I think so often this is where we lose our teams and burn out our volunteers. We put them in the wrong positions. Yeah. Or we only have two options. You can greet and that's it. It's and that can get discouraging. Then you have some people that come up and they want to change. They have such a big vision. It's not that executable. So. I guess I'll give two ways, and I can't speak for everybody, but for myself, just being involved in ministry, not only on staff since 2006, but I volunteered 20 hours a week since 1999. So kind of being in that experience of working with people, I personally, when I really try to learn people, I think I really appreciate God's unique imprint in someone's life. So when I sit down and talk to people, I really try to understand what they're interested in, where they're at, what makes them tick, what are they passionate about, and a lot of times the gifting will reveal through there. Okay. Also with that observation, I'll just give you an example. We have someone on our team that it's they always want a schedule. And even if it's a situation that a schedule is not accounted for, and I've learned that person's a strong admin, you know, that's just the way they're wired. Or here's another one for a leader: if you can really, if you're secure enough for this, listen to what people are complaining about. Yeah. Usually, sometimes what they're complaining about, if they have a deep passion and burden, it's not happening. They recognize it, they see it, and if for so many years I would get really defensive and try to shut them down and explain why it can't work the way they're saying, to now I've learned if they're really passionate that the children's ministry looks bland, I'm hey,
they should do that.
Yeah, you can let's come up with a plan and fix it, or they're whatever it is, they want to see the content go deeper for the kids, or you know what I'm saying. So absolutely. I think really appreciating having taken the time to get to know people, and then listening to what they see, what they're complaining about, what's the passions they might have, how they operate. So I hope, does that make sense?
Oh, totally.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, for me, as a worship pastor specifically, sometimes I think as leaders we have to see that, but also step in and say, but you're not gifted in that. There's so many people that come up and I want to do worship, but they're not skilled. And it's okay to say, no, God has another place for you. Because you're going to be frustrated, or maybe even people make fun of you if you're off key, and people notice that. And so it's a lot easier in the worship world, but in other places, it's just like that. As a leader, we need to place those people where God wants them to be and to help them through that,
So yeah, that is a hard place to be when someone's really passionate about something, and you have to be the one to kind of break the news to them. I think it's kind of, there's a couple different camps there. I'm under the camp that believes anyone can accomplish anything, but some people have a longer road to get there. Yes. So if someone really wants to be on the worship team, but that I don't have a lot of natural talent. Not that I would say, hey, you're going to be on the worship team, but there would be some steps along that process.
Take music classes, do this training, get some vocal
Like I could champion you, but at the same time going, I think there's going to be quite a ways to get there. How bad do you want to fight for that? And on the other hand, that same person, I would try to dangle something else that I see them interested in, to try to divert that attention into something that is going to be their sweet spot.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, because it may take years to get to that place or that capacity or whatever, but it doesn't mean that God doesn't want to use them today and has equipped them today to do something.
Now, I find that's like real discipleship, is being willing to tell people the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a situation recently where someone taught a Wednesday night, and like afterwards, I can tell there was a couple rough moments in the message and in the crowd and some of the execution of things that happened, and I've been there a million times. So, and you always walk out of the situation wondering how'd that go, and there's always a couple people that tell you everything's great, and that's all you hear,
Yeah.
So I called this person up the next day and was like, hey, what did you think about that? How do you think that went? And they were like, I don't really know. My wife tells me it was great. A couple people told me great. I really don't know. And I was like, well, hey, would you be open to some feedback? And was able to share some feedback. I always been on the side of encouragement, but honest. The person told me, and this is someone that's been in the church for like 20 plus years. They're like, you were the first person that's ever like given me feedback after a teaching.
Yeah.
They were so blessed. They were so, I think, energized even by that,
Yeah, because if you do it in a way out of love, we're just supposed to speak truth and love. We want people to get better, to accomplish the vision. It's greater than just ourselves, and sometimes we have to say, we may not be the person to do that vision. I may not be the leader. You may not be the leader, but there are different gifts. There's different capacity, and that's okay. Part of God's team. The Bible says that we all have different gifts, different capacity, and we're all to do it together for the glory of God, and that's okay. And teaching those people discipleship moments, and I think being part of a team trying to do great things for the Lord, you can get discouraged for misplacement, but you can also be placed in the right place where God wants you, and it's still rough, it's still hard.
Oh yeah.
Right? And so how do you bring encouragement to your team? How do you celebrate and lift them up? And just the natural bend of, okay, it's another Sunday, guys, where this is valuable. Like, what are ways that you purposely or intentionally encourage people on your team to keep going for that task and to keep working, even though the Word of God says we do not labor in vain, like be steadfast and immovable, for we know that we don't labor in vain. God encourages us to keep on going. How do we as His ambassadors do that with the people that are under us?
Yeah, there's, once again, I'm going to just focus on two ways. The first one, just to directly answer your question, I think learning how to see the fruit, learning how to see what God is actually doing. It's so often, especially when you're involved in the trench, hands-on, you're usually going to see what's gone wrong. You have in your mind what you want, and what executed might not have been at that level.
Yeah.
Everyone from the outside thinks everything was amazing, but you walk away frustrated. So I think with teams, this is something that I'm doing right now with the teams when I have my one-on-ones, is coming up with, hey, what was a God story of this month or this week? And really trying to be very intentional about looking for it, because God is always working around us, and if He isn't working in it, we probably shouldn't be doing it anyways. So but those God stories, they're so energizing. I mean, just us talking before this, you tell me the God stories about the benevolence and community, it was amazing. It's energizing. So we can get so cynical, we can move so fast that it's important to stop and see the God story. So for me as a leader, I'm trying to build our teams to look for those and highlight them.
Yeah.
The other one is, and this goes along the lines of being involved in doing what you're gifted to do in your sweet spot. Passion-based ministry is when you're building these teams and you know that the person has the right giftings for something and they have a lot of passion and vision for that, I think they are going to be more willing to work through a lot more adversity.
Yeah.
Because as you're saying, like, we're going to have adversity, and as a leader looking back and before you launch something that's going to happen, you can see everyone really excited, but you're looking like 2 months, 3, 4 months.
Yeah.
Are they going to have the steam to carry through that?
Yep.
And when someone has a really deep burden, they're going to be, and passion, they're going to be more willing to push through those barriers. So I think that's part of really trying to align where we're working in our sweet spots. Because if we're working in our sweet spot, we're going to fight through that discouragement differently.
Yeah. How do you develop people in their sweet spots? So say they are passionate, they are gifted. How do you just to continue to encourage them to develop in those things? What is your development for your team? One thing I noticed is you develop through relationship. Because you said, my one-on-one meetings. Like, what does that look like? Like, so can you give a little bit more detail or dig down a little bit deeper in what is a one-on-one meeting with the Kelly, Pastor Kelly, look like? Like, you know what I mean? But I just feel like, well, what is that? What are those things? Because it seems like you're already doing that, with your team.
Yeah. So these one-on-ones I'm talking about are with direct staff that I'm working with, and it's a format I've been working on for about 2 years, and currently it's kind of like a checkpoint of looking back at the past month, and there's some questions in these one-on-ones that are it's very easy for us to go through and give the spiritual answers. I woke up, I did this, and this is what I did. So these one-on-ones, I pose questions like, what would be a verse that describes last month for you?
Oh,
and
that's good.
And it's kind of, and then I say, what would be a verse to describe that and why? So I'm trying to assess and hear how God is speaking to this individual person. And I want them to think about it.
Yeah.
I want them to have the freedom to really be honest and to really look back and look at it in just 1 month increments, because you could have had a terrible 6 months and then yesterday had a great day, and we were doing our one-on-one, you're like, oh, things are great. God showed me this yesterday.
Wow, that's wild.
But we're not talking about the past month, you know? So,
or vice versa. You have a great 6 months and one low day, and you're like, and you've been. That's good.
So that's just these month-to-month questions, verse. I asked for the God story.
Okay.
And this specific team is starting to kind of go, like they weren't thinking about the God stories. Now they are.
Because they know they have to give an account and be like, oh, he's going to ask me about the God story.
Exactly. It's making them think about it,
So now they're actually embedded looking for a God story when they're with the team and this, that, and the other. Because they know accountability is going to help.
They're going to be asked about it, you know. Even if they're scrambling in the first couple months, but now it starts working routine. Then another one is, I say, what's a tension point? What is something that went wrong? Because once again, you can get in a room and you want to say everything that's right, or you want to say everything that's wrong, and we only go back a month. We're not talking about the year. We're just looking at the month, and it gives that person a chance to air that out. And then the last one is, what is an area you'd like to grow in? And it's sometimes that can just come across as like you're not doing good enough, you need to grow. But if we look at it in 1 month increments, and we're looking at it in the basis of we all can grow. Yeah, it's not a failure. Wanting to grow is not a failure. So, and I'm trying to hold them accountable to whatever input they give me. Yeah, and ways that they want to grow.
I love that, because like even in our community groups at church, we always ask 2 main questions: what is God teaching you, and how can we help you with that? Because it assumes that you're going to look and God is teaching you, He does speak, He is alive, you have a relationship with Him, and then accountability, how can we support you, encourage you, and do those things? And like you said, people get accustomed to that, so then they start looking for it, and that's how you build good culture through that relationship and through those one-on-ones.
Yeah, so back to thinking about team and helping people be in the sweet spot, the area that God's gifted them, and obviously that's a journey for all of us. And there's a couple things that came to my mind when you mentioned that. And I think the more we want to grow as a leader and be entrusted with a bigger team and with a more impactful team, a lot of that is kind of us finding our sweet spots and really being honest with ourselves. And what I found is the more we can see big picture and the more we can put our own insecurities and agendas aside for the better of the team, the more we're going to be open to people's sweet spots. Because sometimes I find that someone might be really strong, but they're challenging the leader. The leader's now insecure with that strength, that their spot is on the line. Like, this person's a stronger teacher. I'm not going to let them teach.
Yeah.
You know, and so this has been a real learning curve for me to learn how to operate with a team, with people on the team that have stronger giftings in areas that I don't.
Yeah.
And being able to look at those giftings and go, we're going to run with this person's gifting, and we're going to give them room to shine, and realizing that when one person wins on the team, the whole team wins.
Yeah.
And really, as a leader, what I'm finding, the more I'm able to do that, the more God entrusts me with a bigger team.
Yeah, it's amazing. I remember being on a band, and it was a running joke that even though I was a singer-songwriter and the main vocal, the leader of the band, I was the worst musician on the band. And that's why we were good, right? Because I was just like, no, the main goal is not for me, but to elevate us. And if I want to elevate us, not only do I need to improve, like you said, work through my insecurities and stuff, but also embrace the grace that God has on people's lives and say, yeah, we're using all of it to ultimately glorify Him. It's not glorifying me. I'm running the team. I'm the lead singer, but boom, we do this thing together, and that makes better teams. And I think that's why it's so important for us to walk in love as leaders and as team members. How important is that? Is love, trust, and just relationship in a team to be able to do great things?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's essential, really. I mean, Jesus says he'll know us by our love.
Yeah,
I probably misquoted that, but
they'll know each other. They'll know one another by. They'll know. I misquoted it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
You get it though.
That's right. It's in the Bible.
Yeah.
So they'll know one another. They'll know our love. I'm moving on.
Yeah. We'll put it in there. We'll slide it in there.
That's right.
Okay, but you understand that, and I think if we want to have, if we're doing kingdom work and we want to have eternal impact, it's the relationship part is essential. I mean, that's what's going to dive deeper into, I think, people's hearts and into people being open, people being transparent. I just believe those are the arenas that God is going to work. If we want to be superficial and just produce something, and there's people that do it well, and I don't I love production. I think it's really cool. Like, I used to think it was unspiritual, but I think it's pretty cool. But man, there's just something about that authenticity that just, it pulls people in a way that you just can't script, you know, that rawness, and what it takes for unity with a team is being honest. And those are tough conversations. Those are they're confrontational. They're not fun, but I see that's the area where the Spirit comes in and works supernaturally. Because then you see a group of people together that you're like, there is no way that group is operating together without the Lord. Like, what's happening there does not happen superficially, you know. And it pulls people into question, like, how are they doing that? Why are they doing that? You know, I would never expect them to be hanging out. And
but I think that's important. Like the relationship to love side is, people often don't care what you say unless they know that you care. And so you have to have that trust, that honest, hard conversation, but people will embrace that and accept that if they know that you're doing it not to put them down, but to actually elevate them, elevate the team, and to do it out of love, And so as we build relationships with our team members, it's important. We actually build relationship through adversity, Proverbs say. That's how we actually form a lot of friendships. And most of the close friends that we have are people in our that we're doing ministry with, because we're accomplishing this great task that, like you said, the world can't, like, why in the world are they doing that? It must be God. And we recognize that, we see God's grace, and that's, I think, why people lean in towards team, because we're built for community. I don't have the capacity, the strength to do everything. I need you, you need me, and we're better together. Woes to those that just walk with one person, but if you walk with someone else, then you fall, that person could pick you up. So, man, just thinking about teams and thinking about teamwork, culture, all that stuff, is there any last thoughts or encouragement that you just have on the subject you just want to maybe just encourage us with as we're leading teams, as we're a part of teams, and just thinking about teamwork?
Yeah, and I guess this last bit kind of ties into what we were just talking about, just the importance of that, of the loving relationships.
Yeah.
With teams, it's very easy in church culture to have our identity caught up in what we do.
Yeah.
You know, like our identity can be like, I run sound, I teach, I do this. And that becomes what at some point enters into burnout or becomes unsustainable for the team. And that's where we just have these huge gaps where someone's identity is caught up in this, so they never develop anybody for that. And then they either move or something happens. Now there's this big void.
Yep. Oh, that happens all the time.
So here's my last bit of advice. Don't allow your identity to get caught up in what you do. Allow it to be in the Lord and what Jesus has for you, being fresh and open, that knowing that each one of us are uniquely different. And as much as we like to compare and we can learn from each other, it's like he has such a unique path for each and every one of us individually. We can embrace that. And we can wake up and be excited about what God has for us personally, whether it's going to be in my position now, in a different church, in the work field, whatever it's going to be, just knowing that God, our identity is in who we are in him. You know, we're created in his image, and he's on our side and he's got our back, and allowing our identity to be caught up in that and not in the team and not in what we do.
Man, that's so good. Man, this has been an amazing time. I know that, like, I'm excited to edit this, or not even edit, just push play and watch it again. Because sometimes when you're talking, I'm like, oh, I wish I need to write those 4 questions down and stuff. So I'm glad that there's actually notes, the summary. We'll work on that. And, you know, I've even noticed just a blessing of being a part of a team with EEleaders, this podcast. And this is going to be on season 2. And there's even more interviews in season 2, because I just love connecting with people and seeing their gifts. And I see that in you. I see that you're being used by God in such a great way, and you are gifted in this, passionate about it. Like we said before, even when we started filming, we could talk about this for hours. It's our life. We love it. And so I appreciate what you're doing in our area, my neighboring city, Boynton Beach.
That's right. That's right.
So I hope that was a blessing to you. And man, thanks again so much, Kelly, for just sharing that wisdom with us, dropping the encouragement, and just doing what you do, man. Appreciate it.
Awesome.